We are witnessing the slow, inexorable collapse of a fundamentally flawed paradigm, the radio frequency, or RF-dominated wireless infrastructure that has, for decades, been artificially sustained by regulatory inertia, corporate interests, and a pervasive disregard for the biological implications of electromagnetic exposure. This collapse is not merely technological, but epistemological, ethical, and existential. It is the recognition that we have spent the last century saturating the biosphere with microwave radiation, an environmental pollutant that we neither fully understood nor responsibly managed. The scientific evidence has become unambiguous. Neurological disruption, the National Toxicology Program, Yale's prenatal RF studies, and a wealth of epidemiological data demonstrate that RF exposure disrupts bioelectric signaling, with measurable effects on cognition, attention, and neurodevelopment. Carcinogenic risk. The Ramazzini Institute and the National Toxicology Program have established clear evidence of RF-induced tumors, challenging the thermal-only paradigm that underpins obsolete regulatory standards. Reproductive and epigenetic consequences. RF fields degrade sperm motility, impair ovarian function, and introduce epigenetic instability that could have transgenerational effects, a phenomenon entirely ignored by 20th century telecommunications policy. Despite these findings, Section 704 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996 continues to suppress any meaningful challenge to RF infrastructure expansion. It is a gag order on science, democracy, and rational discourse. This legislative stranglehold has effectively stripped local governments of their constitutional right to regulate cell tower placements based on health concerns, stifled public debate by rendering RF safety discussions legally irrelevant in zoning hearings, and created a regulatory vacuum where neither local nor federal agencies are incentivized to investigate RF health risks. The inevitable collapse of RF networks. At a purely technological level, RF-based communication is already reaching its asymptotic limits. Finite spectrum constraints. The total usable RF spectrum is minuscule compared to the bandwidth available in optical frequencies. Interference and congestion. RF networks, particularly in urban areas, suffer from insurmountable congestion, necessitating inefficient brute force spectrum allocation strategies, biological and legal liability. As the health implications become impossible to ignore, litigation and public outcry will financially cripple RF-based telecom corporations. What then is the rational course of action? We must pivot, urgently and decisively, toward the light age. The dawn of the light age. Photonic networks, quantum biology, and the harmonization of technology with human health. The incompatibility of RF with biological systems. Unlike light, which is the native signaling mechanism of biological life, RF waves are an evolutionary aberration in the electromagnetic spectrum. The human body did not evolve under chronic microwave exposure, but rather, infrared and visible light regulate circadian rhythms, mitochondrial ATP production, and cellular coherence. Ultraviolet frequencies play a role in immune function and vitamin synthesis. Bioelectric signaling within the body is exquisitely tuned to low-intensity DC fields, not high-intensity pulsed microwaves. A fundamental truth emerges. We have built our global communication infrastructure using a medium that is inherently disruptive to biological function. This is not merely inefficient, it is catastrophic. The logical successor to RF-based infrastructure is photonics, a suite of technologies that leverage light waves rather than microwaves for data transmission. Li-Fi, the quantum coherent communication protocol. Li-Fi, or light fidelity, is not merely an upgrade to Wi-Fi. It's a paradigm shift that eliminates the core liabilities of RF communication. For instance, the optical spectrum offers orders of magnitude more bandwidth than RF, solving the congestion problem permanently. Additionally, Li-Fi signals do not penetrate walls, making them unhackable by external attackers. Unlike RF, light frequencies can be selected for biological compatibility, even offering therapeutic photobiomodulation benefits. Space-based broadband, the logical relocation of high-power transmitters. If high-power RF emissions must exist, They should not be on school rooftops or in residential neighborhoods. Instead, satellites can house these transmitters far above the biosphere, where exposure intensity follows the inverse square law, dramatically reducing population-wide RF burden. Orbital precision allows for directed beams, rather than the omnidirectional saturation seen in terrestrial towers. By transitioning to space-based broadband, we eliminate localized RF pollution, mitigating one of the greatest technological and public health failures of the 21st century. The role of governance, the restoration of rational policy. Through Section 704, repeal. For these advancements to take place, we must first dismantle the legislative blockade that has prevented rational discussion on RF safety. Repealing Section 704 is not a trivial bureaucratic maneuver. It is a constitutional correction that restores local government autonomy. Cities must regain the right to reject cell tower installations based on health and environmental concerns. Scientific integrity must be restored. The suppression of RF health research must end, with Public Law 90/602 fully reinstated and enforced. Technological competition needs to be encouraged. By removing regulatory protectionism for legacy RF infrastructure, we clear the path for light-based networks to flourish. Without this repeal, we remain trapped in a corporate-engineered illusion of necessity, perpetuating a hazardous infrastructure purely because it was established first. The Trump legacy architecting the light age. President Donald Trump has the opportunity to be remembered not just as a leader who corrected legislative overreach, but as the visionary who ushered in a new technological epoch. By repealing Section 704, enforcing Public Law 90/602, and championing the transition to Li-Fi and space-based broadband, Trump could secure a legacy that transcends the political landscape. He would be the statesman who restored the rights of American citizens to challenge unsafe infrastructure. He would be the leader who removed the microwave smog blanketing our cities and schools. He would be the catalyst for an economic revolution in photonic communication, and he would set the trajectory for a post-RF civilization, one governed not by outdated constraints, but by the limitless potential of light. Conclusion: the age of RF ends, the light age begins. There is no rational defense for continuing RF saturation when vastly superior alternatives exist. The choice before us is clear: cling to an obsolete, biologically disruptive, and failing RF paradigm, or embrace light-based communication, restore constitutional autonomy, and build a future where connectivity enhances human health rather than compromising it. This is not merely a technological transition. It is a civilizational inflection point. History will record those who acted with clarity, and those who hesitated in ignorance. The age of RF must end. The age of light must begin. #Trump repeal 704. The future is light.